A lot of boxing fans, certainly British boxing fans, will be aware of Carl Froch's YouTube channel, Froch on Fighting, which is pretty funny. He's a straight shooter, is Carl Froch, which is good. You feel he can kind of create that separation between himself and Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, what he used to be a part of, and just give you an honest opinion of how he sees things. He doesn't have really any allegiances or bias, which is refreshing when there's just so many company men out there and so many blowhards. One thing, of course, Froch doesn't need any help with is tooting his own horn. It's become a kind of amusing staple of his personality. Every other sentence he ends up talking about himself. And no doubt that ego will have helped drive him to victory during some of his more dramatic fights, managing to stop Jermaine Taylor in the dying seconds, and, brutalise or steam train, as he puts it. What's his face now? Who's that guy he wasted in 5 rounds? The Canadian. Oh yeah, Lucien Butte. All these old chapters keep getting lovingly retold, as if we didn't quite get the importance and greatness of them first time around, and we have to keep listening until we start to realise, look, this guy's as good as Muhammad Ali. Now, Froch, when he almost senses that he's getting a bit too self-congratulatory, he'll smile and somewhat rein it in, but then the next moment he'll be looking at you like, look, I am the bee's knees. And so we get to that point about, in boxing, you can get, over time, underrepresented narratives, and then it can get to the point when you've got overrepresented narratives. And I think that's kind of where we are now with Froch. Despite the way he carries himself, and you see all those belts in the background of his channel, and sure, he does have lots to be proud about, let's get the context that he wasn't the man in his era. He was number 2 to Andre Ward. And he was a distant number 2. Aren't there about 2 cards that have that fight, 115, 113? That is a laugh. You will not find 5 rounds that Froch took off Andre Ward. You will struggle to give him 3 at the absolute most. And as much as kind of Froch disliked his style, as so many fans dislike Andre Ward's style and try and take things away from him, talk about how he was dirty in the fight against Kesler, where he really broke through, were dirty in the rematch with Kovalev. Froch was under no illusions of who the master was out of those 2. Even later on when he was like, let's get it in Nottingham, let's give me every possible advantage. The guy with this kind of ego was still saying, he still probably beats me, doesn't he? That is mastery right there. That is being humbled. Now, if Froch and Ward existed pre-1960, before the championship got fractured, well, Froch may have briefly held the championship. Then Ward would have taken it off him, held it for as long as he liked, until he retired, and then Froch may have picked it up later. But in doing so, being forced to be a contender for all those years Ward was around, it would have really put it in better context what the reality was anyway, despite having those other alphabet titles. Mikhail Kesler has a very good shout for being Froch's second most decorated opponent. They are 1-1 in their rivalry. As a little caveat, I got to say I really did enjoy their rivalry, the way they matched up, their ability to take a shot, similar dimensions. That was just a really good 2-fight rivalry. Now, Froch always bangs on about the whole ash cloud out of Tenerife and that complicating things, partly why he lost that first fight. But it's kind of balanced out by the fact that Kesler was probably a little bit on the slide come the rematch, which was pretty close and competitive again, Froch deservedly winning. And so, really, who was the better out of those 2? It's pretty even there. If somebody puts a little bit more emphasis on Kesler being older in the rematch than the whole ash cloud for Froch in the first fight, then they'll feel that Kesler is just that little bit better. Now, I could have a little dig about the whole Andre Durrell fight. It was in Nottingham. Some people think that that's indicative of there being some home cooking. But really, the fact we just had a very close fight against another very good fighter just makes me think that's the kind of thing that will happen when you keep fighting quality after quality after quality. And so, yeah, we get onto the main plus of Froch's record. It's depth. You had that fight against Yusuf Mack in 2012. That was kind of a gimme. But apart from that, you had about 6 years worth from the Jean Pascal fight in '08 to the last Groves fight of just pure quality. Guys varying from a pretty solid risk to a real 50-50 fight. You do have to do quite a bit of digging to find other fighters, most of them in the past, well in the past, who are willing or were willing to fight just so many tough guys, one after the other. Often guys in the past, of course, who didn't have a choice but to do that. Froch kind of did, but he accepted those challenges head on. We are kind of aware of this, though. We all give Froch big kudos for the way he went about his career. We hope current world champions go about their career in such a way. But in comments he's had, say, for the likes of Tyson Fury, critiquing his legacy, it made me think, well, you're opening yourself up to a few counters here yourself with your own record, as good as it is. For instance, has Froch got a single win as good as Fury's over Vladimir Klitschko? I don't think so. Even though Klitschko was older, we knew he was a bit past prime. Previous fight against Bryant Jennings, the cracks in the paintwork are starting to show. Fury still had to go over to Germany, take the belt away from him even while getting a point deducted. Yeah, we know the fight sucked, but in terms of the significance, he had a higher peak, I think. Despite the great event that was Froch Groves 2, it was only really a good win. In fairness, I think most of us have a fair gauge of Cole Froch, his greatness, what he did in the ring, great performances, the ability to bounce back, just the application that he had in the ring, with some underrated boxing skills as well. He had that confusing, snaking jab of his, pun intended. But we do lose context. He wasn't the man of his era. And I'm not really sure who was better out of him and Mikkel Kesler, which complicates things further. He's going to keep getting his flowers for as long as he remains in the public eye, which, going off his YouTube channel, it seems like probably quite a few more years, if not decades, we've got left of Frochy baby. But you can't get things over old Spoonie over here. I'm going to call it down the middle, and you're looking at a great British fighter, but not quite the legend that he perceives himself as.